Good afternoon. The Senate Finance Committee is in session. We have a brief voting session, and we'll ask Patrick, who's the analyst of note right now, to take us through the issue.
So that two concurrences. The first is Senate Bill 3. It's the Preserve Telehealth Access Act of 2021. This is the bill that expands Medicaid and health insurance coverage and reimbursement requirements for services provided through telehealth. The House amendments align the Senate bill with the House cross-file that was passed by the Senate earlier this session. So the motion would be to concur.
Move to concur. Second. All right. Any discussion on the motion? All right. If not, what did we say we don't call it? All right. Let's just raise our hands if there's no problem. Okay. If you're for the motion, all right. All right. Thank you. Okay.
The next concurrence is Senate Bill 638. This is the Maryland Insurance Commissioner Specialty Mental Health Services and Payment of Claims Enforcement Bill. This is the Optum bill. This is the bill that requires the Insurance Commissioner to enforce the performance standards relating to the payment of claims against Optum, the ASO that's responsible for managing care and paying claims for the Maryland Public the Maryland Public Behavioral Health System. The House amendments align the Senate bill with the House cross-file that was passed by the Senate earlier this session. So also the motion would be to concur.
All right, a very important issue.
Yes. Move to concur. Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on this motion? If not, all in favor, please raise your hands for this concurrence. Okay, that's unanimous. Okay.
Okay, the next concurrence is Senate Bill 135. This is Senator Klossmeyer's bill about electric charged or battery charged fence security systems. If you recall, the House put on an amendment that exempts deer fencing, which is fencing engineered to exclude deer or elk from a property. You initially took the House bill and struck that from the House bill, but then rescinded that action. And so now you have Senator Klossmeyer's bill with that language on there. So to be consistent, you would probably want to concur.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor of the concurrence, please raise your hand. Okay. Guys, we are in public.
One more concurrence. This is Senate Bill 204, Senator Beidel's bill about assisted living program memory care regulations, and also requires the Department of Health to convene a group and start working on regulations that generally regulate assisted living programs that have been sitting around for a while. The House amended the bill to be the same as House Bill 416, which you passed, which you reported out favorably, and so I believe Senator Beidel is okay with you concurring with the House amendments to her bill.
All right, is there any discussion on this motion? If not, then all in favor of the concurrence, please raise your hand. All right, that's unanimous. All right, that's unanimous. Thank you.
The next bill to address is House Bill 6, where you would be determining whether the Finance Committee would
Can
recede.
you be a little louder?
Pardon me. Would recede or not recede. This is the bill that deals with adding members to the TEDCO board, as well as changing the title of Executive Director to Chief Executive Officer. There were some concerns raised related to an amendment that the Senate Finance Committee put onto the bill that limited the number of consecutive terms that an HBCU may be represented on the board. The House is interested in applying that same limit to all institutions of higher education. And to do that, the Finance Committee would elect not to recede and then go to Conference Committee prepared to make that change.
Well, do you want all of them treated the same or just to stick with the HBCUs?
Sorry about that, Madam Chair. So there's two appointments, one for college and university and one for HBCU. The House is simply saying, instead of treating the HBCU differently, just both of the college representatives, the HBCU and the other school, to have a rotation. It makes sense.
Okay. Okay. Someone want to make a motion? All right. Okay. All right. We've got the motion. Do we have a second? Second. Okay, and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of this motion, please raise your hand. Not to receive. Okay.
The next bill is Senate Bill 52. This is the Maryland Commission on Health Equity, or the Shirley Nathan Pulliam Health Equity Act of 2021. The House has amended Senate Bill 52 to return the preamble that was removed. The House amendment conforms the Senate bill to the House bill as it passed this committee and as it passed the full Senate last week. In order for the bills to be identical, you would vote to concur.
Okay, all right, who made the motion? Okay, and do we, second? All right, any discussion on this motion? If not, you ready for the question? All in favor, please raise your hand. All right, opposed, please raise your hand. Okay.
The next bill is Senate Bill 783. This is the West North Avenue Development Authority. The House amendment conforms Senate Bill 783 to House Bill 1293 as amended by the Finance Committee. Voting to concur would align the two bills.
All right, we got a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on this motion? If you're ready for the question, please raise your right hands if you're in favor of the motion. All right, thank you.
So the final concurrence bill is Senate Bill 31, and this is the Electricity and Gas Energy Suppliers Supply Offers. So Senate Bill 31 was amended by the House to conform to House Bill 397, which is also up next on the voting list. The main difference between Senate Bill 31 as it passed the Senate and as it appears here today is that the House eliminated the education program that would have required PSC to adopt certain regulations. Generally, it would be best to consider both Senate Bill 31 and House Bill 397 simultaneously, so that the concurrence response aligns with the action taken on House Bill 397. So for reference, there's a reprint before you which reflects amendments to the House bill, which is in possession of the Finance Committee. These amendments are offered by Senator Klausmeier, and they would conform the House bill to the Senate bill as it passed the Senate, but it further revises the education program by changing what was more of an open-ended requirement and instead setting out specific requirements for a quarterly bill insert. The bill inserts must specifically include information about the benefits of customer choice, teach customers how to shop for electricity and gas service from a third-party energy supplier, note the potential for savings when choosing a third-party energy supplier, and include links to the PSC electric and gas shopping websites. Further, OHEP must provide energy assistance applicants with materials from PSC that similarly note the benefits of shopping for energy, teach customers how to shop and compare rates, include information about potential savings, and include links to the PSC website. There is no revised fiscal note for the amendments, but PSC has informally advised that the education program would cost PSC around $250,000. That's as opposed to the approximately $2.6 million annually that it would have cost to implement Senate Bill 31 as it originally passed the Senate Finance Committee. But the $250,000 number does not include any ratepayer impact that could be as a result of printing requirements when imposing the requirement on utilities to include the bill insert.
Okay, heard the analysis. What is your pleasure?
Well,
Senator
Senator
Kelly.
Klausmeier is butting on, because first of all, I hadn't heard Senator Klausmeier actually offering those amendments. So, Senator Klausmeier, do you actually plan to offer those amendments that have been incorporated into this report?
No. I don't know where they came from. I was kind of like surprised to see them.
Yeah, so can I just very quickly, because we spent a lot of time, if you remember, just to refresh everybody's memory, we went out to the floor first time around, and it was in part because at that time the PSC said that the bill as introduced, was somewhat problematic, and they were opposed and went out. In the meantime, while we were on the floor, Delegate Lehrman changed the bill in the House, and PSC took a neutral position, which then caused us to come back to the committee and come up with some new amendments that Senator Washington was fine with. So we sent it over to the House. I think just a little history here with those education amendments, which he thought were good. But it turns out those education amendments had significant fiscal note. So that was unworkable on that front. So then Delegate Lehrman and Senator Washington put together an alternative set of education amendments that they presented to ECM, and they thought would be on Friday. But turns out ECM decided to just forget all the education stuff and send the bill back without that Lehrman-Washington language with the reduced fiscal note. And that's now back with us with all that stuff clean. So, Madam Chair, long story short, I kind of think we've come to the end of the road on this. And I think I would suggest we just move to concur on Senate Bill 31, Senator Washington's bill, and then make the two bills the same. And I think at this point, I think we've explored having this language with education, and I think it was actually a good idea. But the back and forth with PSC and has been really kind of perplexing. They kept changing their views and their positions, and so I think that's at least where I stand.
Okay, so we
to move
got
to
a
concur.
motion. Do we have a second? Okay, any discussion on the motion? Senator Hershey and then Senator Hayes.
Yeah, just make sure I understand it. We're going to conform the House bill to the bill that we sent over. Is that right?
No.
You're going to take the education out
Correct.
altogether?
The bill that we sent over had a $6 million fiscal note to have the education stuff that we put in the bill over there, and that was a problem. And so that.
Wait a minute. You're saying PSC, when you said that they removed their opposition, it was because it had an educational component, and you said that was $6.5 million?
No, they removed, just again, so we can go through this again. When we were on the floor the first time that had significant education stuff, at the same time, they made some changes in the House bill that had a later date for PSC to implement. And PSC then, on the House bill, moved from opposition to neutral. And at that point, we had a whole back and forth with Senator Washington on the floor, and we came back to this committee and came up with a new set of education amendments that we sent over.
Right.
And those set of amendments were scored in millions. We obviously didn't know that when we put the amendments over. So that fiscal note, it was in the millions, and essentially ECM struck all the education stuff because it's too much money and too complicated, and sent it back to us.
So
Without any of the education stuff.
So then where are we at? Or you're saying we're almost at the bill that was introduced that we.
Except that because of the changes in the House on the implementation point now, as opposed to the first bill when we heard it the first time, the PSC was opposed because they said it wasn't workable. Now, because the implementation date is later, they now say that it's workable and they're neutral. So it is different. The bill itself is materially the same, I believe, Nathan, but the PSC position has evolved because of that later implementation date. If something I've said is not consistent with...
You're saying PSC has now agreed to the initial bill just because we moved the dates out?
I didn't say support, I said
All right, 'cause
neutral.
that's not what I'm hearing at all still. I mean, I still think that if this is going back to the original bill, then tell me how it's changed.
I'll let Nathan explain some of the other differences beyond the implementation date.
So what we're looking at now is the bill that passed the House in both forms. Senate Bill 31 has been amended by the House to conform to House Bill 397 as it passed the House. So it shifts back on page 1. You can see that we moved from 2022 to 2023. And on page 3, it removed the requirement to generate certain test cases. So those were changes that were offered by the sponsor of the bill that the Senate Finance Committee took up and adopted when moving the Senate bill originally. And at that point, the Finance Committee also added the education requirement.
Senator Hershey?
That's my point. I think the only thing that you're saying is different from the original bill that had a lot of concerns is that you've moved the date and you struck some reporting language. Is that what you're saying?
It struck test case language.
Test case?
Yes, which the PSC said was not workable. It required them to run certain test cases through the utility billing system.
And the education component that PSC liked, we're pulling back out again. I thought that was the amendment that the House took on, the Learman bill, when PSC went and said if we had the education component, then we can be neutral on this.
I think those amendments were more, I would say, from the retail supplier folks more than I don't think the PSC ever weighed in wanting anything to do with the education stuff because I think they thought it was burdensome for them. So I think that was not coming from the education stuff, which is sort of separate than the main part of the bill. It did not come from the PSC. It came from elsewhere.
Senator Glossmeyer?
And I just want to say that if that doesn't get on, I think next year will be the time that we're going to add some education to it, because I think people need to know more about it. So if they know more about it, then they will be more informed. So,
Well, obviously, we'll have to think of a modality for teaching that doesn't cost a fiscal note that's so big that you'll get the pushback.
the Public Service Commission will be a little bit different next year, and think about it, and maybe we can work with them to do this.
Okay.
It was like not forthcoming.
Is your light on, Senator Reedy?
Maybe try to understand this. If I can pull out my I'm new here card. I know it's all the way through session now, but so changing the date to 2023, this original bill, if I remember, was basically trying to really get at not letting third-party providers sell to people who are on energy assistance, correct? Was that the main goal of the bill?
None of this.
I think the main part of the bill was if you sell, those folks shouldn't be paying more than they otherwise would have been getting on
Right, and
SOS,
so the conflict,
right?
okay, that's right. So the conflict was, how are they supposed to know, like, how is PSC supposed to know that they're doing this? Yeah. Okay.
All right.
A lot of questions about why we're requiring. I mean, I'm not quite sure why electric companies and gas companies should be required to inform customers how they can get a better price by shopping with a competitor. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm arguing from the other direction. All right, I'm just trying to understand a little better.
Right. Those amendments are in the reprint are not being now
That's
not
yeah.
being offered. So.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right. Now, did anybody make a motion?
I move to concur on
To the-
SB 31.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? All right. If you're in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. If you're opposed, please raise your hand. Okay. All right, the motion carries.
And then the last item then would be to vote, the committee should consider whether it wants to vote favorable on House Bill 397. To vote favorable would be to move the House bill forward in the same posture as the Senate bill, which we just voted to concur.
Okay,
Which
can
the
we get a motion?
committee vote.
All right, did we get a second? All right, any discussion on that motion to concur? Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. All right, if you're opposed, please raise your hand. Okay. Is that the end of our agenda, guys? Okay, thanks very much.